Okay, so today we're diving headfirst into something that just unfolded, well, incredibly fast. We're talking about the Israel-Iran ceasefire. The one brokered by U.S. President Trump just on June 24th, 2025.
Yeah, meant to end that whole 12-day war.
Exactly, and he even declared it complete and total on Truth Social, his platform.
Yikes.
But here's the really wild part. It shattered. I mean, literally within minutes of being announced.
It's kind of a textbook case in just how volatile things are. So our mission, really, is to unpack why. Why did this truce just implode so fast? What's the fallout for oil markets, which everyone's watching? And, what are the deeper strategies driving this whole confrontation?
Right. So for you listening, think of this as your shortcut through all the noise to get what's really going on here. Let's start with that ceasefire that, well, wasn't really a ceasefire. There's that tiny flicker of hope, wasn't there?
Israel confirmed quickly, said, all objectives met.
Yeah, including neutralizing that immediate existential threat, their words, from Iran's nuclear and missile programs.
And Iran's state media even reported it started. So for a moment,
Yeah. But then
breakdown, almost instantaneous. Israel confirms, and then minutes later accuses Iran of violating the truce.
Man, wow.
Yeah. Israel's defense minister, Israel Katz, ordered, quote, powerful strikes against regime targets in the heart of Tehran.
And there were reports of new missiles from Iran towards Israel, too.
That's what Israel reported, yes,
Okay.
towards the north. And this was after Iran's earlier symbolic strike, you could call it, on the U.S. base in Qatar.
The Al Udeid base strike.
Right.
No casualties there, but Iran framed it as responding to U.S. strikes on its nuclear sites.
Exactly. Sets the stage,
And the narratives coming out were just miles apart. Israel saying, we did it all, eliminated another senior nuclear scientist, claimed full air control over Tehran. But Iran, totally different story, claiming the ceasefire was imposed on Israel because Iran's response was so successful.
And even that allegation that Trump begged for it,
Yeah.
It's quite the contrast.
It really makes you wonder, how can you have a truce when reality itself seems completely contested?
That's the core issue, isn't it? And it brings up this paradox. Look, the U.S. strikes on Iran's nuclear sites, Fordo, Natanz, Isfahan. They did cause very significant damage, no doubt. Shattered that myth of invincibility Iran had basically cultivated.
Okay.
But, and this is the twist, that very success could paradoxically just, steal Tehran's resolve, make them more determined to break out towards a bomb in the long run.
So hitting them hard might actually backfire strategically, pushing them towards the bomb faster.
It's a definite risk. It forces a recalibration on their end.
And this immediate collapse, it hit the oil markets instantly.
Oh, absolutely. The initial reaction was pretty dramatic. Brent crude fell sharply.
How much are we talking?
Almost 6%. It dipped below $70 a barrel, hit $68.76, lowest since June 12th. That drop below 70 was seen as kind of symbolic relief.
Brief relief, though.
Very brief. Prices ticked right back up, almost to $70 again, pretty much as soon as Israel warned about new strikes coming from Iran. And you have to remember the context here. Brent was already up 18% since early June, before any of this recent escalation.
Right, and it surged over $80 after the initial U.S. strikes. So this dip was just a blip.
Exactly. A blip in a very volatile upward trend.
Which brings us to the elephant in the room, maybe? The Strait of Hormuz.
The ultimate red line. Absolutely. That narrow shipping lane, critical, doesn't even begin to cover it.
And something like 65% of India's crude oil goes through there.
That's right. And Iran's renewed threat to potentially shut it down, well, the implications are massive. Any disruption there severely affects India, obviously, but also global energy security. It hikes shipping costs, drives up inflation everywhere.
Puts the Gulf states in a really tough spot, too.
Incredibly precarious position, yeah. And this just adds to the pressure we're already seeing on shipping, like, the Red Sea attacks. It all contributed to the WTO revising its global trade outlook down to a 0.2% contraction for 2025. That's significant.
And the political fallout is spreading, too, isn't it? Regionally?
Definitely. Reports suggest Gulf states are, let's say, frustrated with Israel acting unilaterally. They feel sidelined as mediators.
And Turkey.
Deeply concerned, worried about a potential huge influx of refugees, which gives them, understandably, flashbacks to the Syrian war situation.
And beyond the region. The big powers.
Well, you saw Russia and China condemning the U.S. attacks on Iran's sites, called them unjustified, unprovoked. But interestingly, there were also signs of Iranian frustration with Moscow.
Really? despite their strategic pact.
Yeah, frustration over perceived inaction from Russia. So even alliances are feeling the strain here.
So for you, the listener, this isn't just geopolitical chess. It hits the economy. We're seeing that flight to safety in markets.
hmm Money moving into traditional safe havens gold, the Swiss francers.
Investors getting nervous.
And this puts central banks, like the Fed in the U.S., in a bind.
A really difficult position. How do you balance fighting inflation, which higher oil prices fuel, with supporting economic growth if the conflict drags on or widens? Because the risk here, the big one, is that this conflict could draw in other major powers, leading to a much broader war.
So if there's one key takeaway for you from all this, it's that this super short-lived ceasefire is just a stark, stark reminder. A reminder of the deep, enduring instability in the Middle East. It's all fueled by this profound mistrust and, frankly, clashing goals that aren't going away.
Exactly. And while you hear some optimism, like U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance calling this an important reset moment,
You sound skeptical.
well, the speed of the collapse, the narratives, the underlying dynamics you've talked about, it all points more towards a continuation of these entrenched rivalries, not really a reset. A lot hinges now on what Iran does next, especially with Hormuz and whether diplomacy can find any common ground at all. Which seems tough when, as we said, they can't even agree on what just happened.
Precisely.
So maybe the thought to leave you with is this. What does this kind of constant, unpredictable volatility actually mean? For global economic resilience, yes, but also for the very idea of international stability, when basic facts seem up for grabs.